Viewers, listeners, welcome to another episode of Blighty Talks Bricks. My guest today is someone that's actually had a career in the construction industry. He's worked for a lot of the big names in the industry. He's somebody that I don't know. He's had over 30 years experience in this industry that I just love and adore. He's the founder and the managing director at Linfield Construction. And I'd like to welcome my guest today, Steve Morris. Steve, welcome to Blighty Talks Bricks. Thanks for coming on. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, Steve. And thanks for inviting me. I'm honoured to be here.
Well, it's lovely to have you. Thank you for your time. I know that everyone in the construction industry is busy at the moment, not necessarily all of it good.
Yeah, no.
Before we start talking into what you're doing at Linfield and the market in general, how did you get into the industry? Because I always like to get from my guests how they started their journey in it.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously going back to the early days, school was a troubled time for me, really. I didn't enjoy school apart from the social side.
We've got something in common. We've got two things in common there.
So the social side of school I loved, but academically I just couldn't get it.
No.
I needed a purpose for something to do to get an end result for me to see how to do it. So obviously went through school, but came out with that limited, really. Somehow managed to get a GCSE in media studies.
Did you really? You
don't know how.
You're showing off now, aren't you?
And so I left school. I was 15 at the time because I was a young one for my year.
Yeah.
And I went in. I got a labouring job pretty much straight away. I'd started that as soon as I left, really, straight into work. And then I just did general labouring, bit of roofing, and worked my way through. And then I did a bricklaying apprenticeship. Got my City and Guilds in bricklaying. And that
all
was
the time
start.
enjoying this process.
Yeah,
you liked
mostly.
being on site? Yeah.
Mostly. I'd say the industry's changed a lot.
Yeah.
I think the first job I was in, as I was doing my apprenticeship, we still had bullies in the workplace. I think that was, looking back now at the time, it was...
You didn't know that though, didn't you?
No, just deflected it, really. But when I look back now, I think, if I see that bloke in the street now... But I think that's changed a lot. So I think that's pretty much, it's not completely gone, but it's not,
improved no end.
It's improved no end. So the start was really into the manual side of the industry.
Was you always ambitious as a kid? I don't think we knew what ambition was, but
no.
Did you always think, I want something, I want more, or?
Yeah, I think I always wanted to do something, but I always doubted my own ability.
Yeah.
And I think that was what held me back, if I'm honest. I had a very academic brother in the house who, was A-levels degrees.
And then academia, if it's not like today, you were considered to be a bit thick, really, if you weren't good.
Yeah, and we were chalk and cheese. So
I wasn't considered; I was just known to be. But so you had a brother that's doing well, so it puts pressure on, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think, and that, I was a bit of a naughty boy then, type thing.
Yeah.
Gave me mum hell probably at times. But yeah, as soon as I got into work and I started to find I was achieving something, that lit a fire in me then. Just
made you mature in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So carry on this journey then. You've gone in at the sharp end.
Yeah.
We both understand there's a culture. There was a culture difference today. It was tough then in another way.
Yeah.
You've done well. You've got your City and Guilds. You've qualified.
Yeah, got that. Yeah.
So what's your next step then?
Well, so then there was issues at work. One of them was this sort of bullying type thing. And I got to hate the job, really. So I remember going to my dad and saying to him, Dad, I don't want to go to work. I don't want to get up in the morning because of the situation.
It's a horrible feeling, isn't it?
Yeah, it was horrible. And he said to me, look, I'll support you. I mean, my parents didn't have much money at all.
You had a lot of love at home.
Support himself. My dad worked 7 days a week to support the family. But he said, look, I'll support you as long as I can, but you can't be dossing around doing nothing. And he took me and bought me a van and said, why don't you go out and do, some patios, bit of this, bit of that. So I did some of that. And to be honest, I think looking back now, although I could do a little bit of the stuff, I wasn't the best at it.
Yeah.
And then it didn't really work for me. So I knew I had to get a job. I knew I had to earn money. And the job came up at Travis Perkins, working behind the counter in their shop.
Yeah.
And I thought, right, well, it's not ideal, it's not what I want, but I'm going to give this a go because I need the income. And I went and did that, and I've got to say, it's probably one of the best jobs I ever had.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, it was so front-facing and social, with all the builders coming into the counter. You could have a laugh, you could have a chat, don't you? See some real characters. And so I worked behind the counter, and I just really threw myself into it. And then one of the guys who was there was a sales rep at the time. He left, and he recommended me for his job. And at the time, I mean, I was their youngest ever sales rep at that time.
And was that on the road kind of thing?
Yeah, going out seeing clients. And I was like over the moon. I got a Toyota Corolla as a company car.
I remember them.
Yeah, and so I did that, and I enjoyed that as well. I mean, the money was never that great in that sort of industry, but I had a good time. And then Mark, who had left, he then approached me and said, would I be interested in going to work for the developer?
Sounds like a nice guy, this Mark.
Yeah, the developer he was working for as a materials buyer. Obviously, it was quite an enhanced package at the time, and that's what I went and did, and that's where I sort of started my journey in developers, really.
So, at what point in your career, having worked for some of, we mentioned, I know you worked for some of the big names in the past.
Yeah.
At what point did you think, I want to do this on my own? Because that's a big leap, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I'd done that a couple of times, but it was always family holding me back. Not family holding me back, but the fact that I had a family.
Yeah, you've got to look after, you've got wife and kids.
I got the mortgage, got the kids, got the cars to pay for. But my wife, Emma, I mean, I think if it hadn't been for her, I probably would never have done it, because she was always so supportive.
Was she?
Never ever questioned what I've done. Always just said, look, if that's what you want, then that's what you need to do. My parents less so. They were like, you're nuts. What are you doing this for?
Yeah.
You've got a good job, stick with it, steady income.
Income, yeah.
But my dad was a very steady Eddie type person, So I'd considered it a few times. But then I thought, no, while the family's young, let's just stick with it and try and make the steps up the levels. And I always wanted to get to a position really where I was a director of one of the big developers type thing. And all but title, I got there really. That was it really.
And so you started up on your own. Was that tough?
Yeah, well, when I first started up as under another business. I left Berkeley Homes, where I was at the time, and I started up a company called Seco Construction, and I had a financial backer that was the reason I went to do it, really. Big move, big step, as I said, about the family issues and everything else. And I went and did that, and then there was issues with money, funding and one thing and another, and he was having some issues with HMRC, I think. And so we didn't actually ever get any funding into the business.
Right.
So I had to diversify from that, and I thought, I don't want to go backwards now, I've got to go forwards. So we started doing some consultancy work for other developers, and that kept the wheels turning.
Just kept money coming in.
Yeah, and I did that for a couple of years, and then I thought, right, I've got to make this step now. I've got to do this on my own. So I then found another developer that we worked quite closely with. They had a couple of big schemes coming up, and we had an agreement with them that we would deliver them schemes for them, and that was the great start, really.
And that got you up and running, so to speak.
Yeah. And
how long have you been running Linfield now?
So 2019 we formed Linfield.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
And that's been an interesting 5-6 years, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean,
in lots of ways.
Yeah, I mean, at first, obviously, we had a project in East Ham, which was our first project. It was about £12 million project, and we thought that's brilliant to start with. That's a great size project for us, 42 flats, and then we just demolished it, and then COVID hit, and so then the developer put a stop on it.
Yeah.
And it stopped for about 2 years.
Did it really?
Yeah, and that was our only project at the time.
Worrying times then, isn't it?
Yeah, it was, and I mean, I didn't, at one point I didn't see it starting again. I thought, where is this going to go? And it was obviously, as you know, it was the same anywhere else in the industry.
Oh, we were all in it together.
Yeah, so you had nowhere to go really. but thankfully things turned around, and we renegotiated the contract on that project and started it again.
And so back up and running and moving along now?
Yeah.
Done, finished?
Done, finished, yeah. That was handed over last week. So.
Right, okay. Well, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
It's I know how difficult it is.
Yeah.
What's the plans going forward for Linfield?
Well, at the moment we're on a big scheme in Barking, 170 flats,
right,
which is a distressed project. The contractor's gone bust.
Right.
So we're in there to finish that off. But it's a bit more than that, because obviously there's some real poor workmanship on the scheme, which means at the moment we're going backwards rather than forwards.
Yeah.
And then from there on, I mean, I think ideally for Linfield, we want to be operating more in the developing space than the contracting.
Yeah.
We've done one development of 3 houses. We've got another one in for planning at the moment. But the contracting side is just hard work. It's all hard work.
Cost increases.
Yeah.
Dealing with when you've got problem sites you've taken on anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, COVID left a big hole in lots of ways, didn't it?
Yeah, without a doubt, yeah.
And we're still feeling that pinch, aren't we?
Yeah. I mean, we've seen just recently, I've seen some really good contractors go bust, which is probably an impact of that still.
And contractors that are, big businesses.
Yeah.
Been around a long time.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It is tough times. Do we as one of the questions when I've got people on from the construction industry, the construction industry, you're more on the, bit of contracting, bit of development, and the house building side, do we look after ourselves as a united party in your view? Or are we all individual companies scurrying around doing what we do?
No, I think we don't. I think that there's a lot of good talent out there. And there's a lot of companies, bigger companies if you like, that could support the SMEs better.
Yeah.
I think there's lots of facts and figures around SMEs in terms of how they've dropped off in the last 20 years. And really, if we want to get Britain building again, we need to bring some of them SMEs forward.
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm thinking for the future of myself to an extent, but others more so.
Oh, already, I mean, obviously I can tell by looking at you, I'm substantially older than you, but, I worry for the kids and grandkids where we're going.
Yeah.
Just not just in just generally what's infrastructure.
Yeah.
I read something today in the papers that, they want billions to put right the NHS buildings. Not doctors and nurses and facilities, but just buildings, the billions we've got to spend. And if we're going to keep spending money, which the last Conservative government were very good at doing, Labour has certainly started off very good in doing, where do we get the money from? We can only generate it from revenue. And it just seems to me there's a blind spot for the last government and this government. And we're a few months into the Labour government, but I've not heard any real constructive talk about what we're going to do about property, what we're going to do about construction.
No, I mean, there's obviously the mention we're going to build 300,000 homes, but there's nothing that's changed yet to enable that to happen that I can see.
And I'm not bright, but if it was me, I mean, I'd be going to the professionals and saying, what can we do?
Yeah.
Not just sitting there having somebody that's never done anything in the industry at all, making statements that they've probably picked up from the Conservatives.
Yeah, I know. And people have been making a noise about it, particularly the SME side.
There is noise out there. I, like you say, most of the people I have on the show all agree that we don't do enough to unite.
No.
And it is nice, I can say it, we've got the HBF coming on soon, a few weeks' time.
Right.
And I'm looking forward to those conversations. We've got two of the people coming on, and I'm looking forward to talk about what we can do to try and actually get that voice out there. But it's a benefit for Great Britain PLC, isn't it?
Oh, without doubt, yeah.
So I sit here and when I'm with property people and I've created this Blighty's magic wand.
Yeah.
If I said to you, there you go, Steve, you got the wand, 3 wishes. What 3 things would you bring in to change the construction industry, the house building, whatever it is? What would you do today? And I'm going to Downing Street tomorrow, and Sir Keir Starmer said, right, we're going to get them into play. I
think number 1 has got to be, and it's commonly said by so many people, is planning. I mean, we're trying to get planning on a 3-unit scheme, And
you would think it was 333,000.
You know, it's been in over 9 months. We've had no responses from pre-apps we've paid for. You know,
nothing at all?
No, nothing on the second one. And so we put the application in on the basis of the feedback we got from the pre-app. And now they've come back to us and said, we don't like the design, don't like the layout, don't like...
Other than that, it was really good, Steve.
£30,000 later. You know, and developers can't afford, regardless of size, to just throw that money down the pan.
Absolutely.
There needs to be some form of more constructive feedback that they are liable for in some ways when they make that. Because what seems to happen is you talk to a planning officer, they'll have one thought process, but then ultimately to get planning they have to take to their boss who thinks completely different.
And it's, you hit the nail on the head, it's what everyone that's sat in that chair from construction, no matter what level, sits there and says, it just seems as though it's... And I know we've got NIMBYs, and I know nobody wants the big new development next to them, and I've said that many a time. But we've got to have a better way of dealing with things going forward, haven't we?
Yeah, without a doubt. And I, as I say, the planning system, I think, other than interest rates, can obviously free up the market to enable people to get going again. So
I'm taking two of your wishes. You want to change the planning system. Interest rates are something I think we're always going to go up.
Yeah.
But again, need to be looked at just across the board. What's your third wish?
I think apprentices for me. I think we need to be getting more apprentices into the industry. I think in some ways, dare I say it, it's probably a bit constrained by what we're paying them. You know, the young lads are expected to work for, I don't know what the figure is, but it's minimal wage, less than minimal, half minimum wage probably. And I've heard it from loads of them when they say, well, actually, I can go and work in McDonald's and earn twice as much. I can work in Tesco. That's not encouraging people to come into our industry, which needs... The industry's not promoted in schools now, is it? No.
You know, it's... again, it seems to be another blind spot.
Yeah.
And I think also, you know, I think being a bricklayer, being on site is tough.
Yeah.
I think that they need to be rewarded because it's hard going. It's all right, you know, it's nice when you're looking in August and the sun's shining, but not so good. And having picked up scaffold poles in the past in the middle of winter. Yeah. But one of the challenges when I talk to people that employ apprentices is that loyalty from the other side. Yeah. You know, a guy I was talking to the other day runs an electrician. He's an electrician, runs a contract business, and a number of the apprentices they've had come through the system, he says they treat them well. I've got nothing to say one way or t'other. But as soon as they're qualified, they're gone. Yeah, yeah. And companies are investing money in, aren't they? So yeah, it must be some sort of trail we've got to look at. Yeah, I mean, I think you can tie them in, can't you, that they've got to stay for X amount of time after receiving their qualification, or they have to pay back their fees or something. But I mean, really, that's a circle whereby you might lose someone, but then you might pick someone up from someone else. I think you've got to sort of accept that to a degree. A certain amount are not going to make it, or are going to leave you. Yeah. What do you think of the current market? In terms of the housing sales, or the whole lot of the construct, just, you know, what's your take on it? I mean, you know, for me, in the main contracting space at the moment, I think that needs looking at in itself. I think people work on too tight margins. They set themselves up to fail. Yeah. And then everyone in the process suffers in some way. You can blame it sometimes on the developer or the client choosing the cheapest price and just running with that. But I mean, there needs to be some sort of review of how that works and how these contracts work. People buy business, don't they? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I had a guy, we priced a job, and a guy come back to me and said, well, if you can take £250,000 off your price, you can have it. And I said, well, if I could take £250,000 off my price, you should be insulted. Yeah. And I'd be working for nothing. Yeah. You know, and I'm not prepared to do that. So, but there are people that are. I mean, I see it, you know, we our business, we have a land side to it, and some of the prices that people are wanting for small bits of land, and even big bits, it really, it's like, it doesn't stack up. No. It doesn't work. No, it doesn't. So I think we're in a perfect storm, as I call it. Lots of challenges. Do you see any light on the horizon? Have we got light at the end of the tunnel?
I actually do think that Labour will improve the situation. But
in the past, Labour governments have always been good for construction in Great Britain.
But it's going to take a lot of time, I think.
Are they going to concentrate on that? My fear at the moment is early days.
Yeah.
Early days in a 4-year. The reason, if you can hear that noise, anyone, is that we have a construction site where they're
That's the
next
demolition.
door, which they're actually working on, which is fantastic news. So I don't mind that. But is it? Are they going to grip it, or is it not on their horizon?
I think it is, because I think it's so important, and they know that. You know, they know it's probably the biggest contributor to the
Other
growth.
than supermarkets, and revenue to the Chancellor.
Yeah. So, you know, it's got to be an area of focus, hasn't it? And they've made a big deal about it. There's been a lot said about, you know, how they're going to do things. So I do think they will get to grip with it. But as I say, I just don't think it's going to happen very quickly.
Well, I hope you're right. I hope they're going to get to grip with it. I hope there is some light at the tunnel. I haven't met you. This is the first time I met you. You've got a nice disposition. You seem to be sort of dealing with these challenges. That smile on your face, is it real? Do you always have that? Or
well, to be honest, yeah, I mean, every day, you know, of course there's challenges, but, you know, I've had some hardship in my life, lost both my parents, and my daughter actually got me into sort of more mindset books and things like that.
Did she?
So the
sort of mechanisms you use, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think I just look at it and say, well, you know, there's worse things that can happen.
Yeah.
You know, there's always going to be challenges. To be fair, I've got good people around me. I've got a good team around me.
Which makes a big difference.
And I've got good family support around me.
So how comes your daughter got you into? Was she thinking you're becoming a bit miserable, Dad, or anything like that?
No, she's one of them type people. She reads all these mindset books and one thing and another. And it was during COVID actually, or just after COVID. And I just thought, I've got a bit of time on my hands, I'll sit down and read one. And and then started listening to podcasts.
And is there, I mean, I ask this of people. I mean, we have some people on here, and just, I said to you off air, gifted. They don't have any challenges, like people with good voices. That's a gift. I struggle, but is there anything that when you get days when you think, oh, for fuck's sake, or is it just you've got a sort of good disposition? You go, like you say, I've had tough times. It's not the end of the world. Yeah, losing people. Yeah, losing people does change your view of life.
Oh, 100%, 100%. And it's a really weird thing because it's you got to be careful how you say it. But actually, my dad dying was probably one of the things that's turned my life.
Do you know what?
For the better.
I've heard that on this podcast. I've had people sit there and say, do you know what? It was one of those things that happened, and I took strength from it, and I took direction from it.
Yeah, without a doubt. It took time, but eventually I did take a lot from it.
And touching on your parents, you say you lost both.
Yeah.
I'm in the same boat. You know, my dad was my best friend. And it does take time.
Yeah.
It does get better. How did you lose your parents?
Well, my dad died of a cardiac arrest 14 years ago now.
How old would he have been at the
65.
time? Right.
So he'd just retired. He retired in the June, died in the February.
Really?
Walking home from the pub, funny enough, I kicked him.
I suppose in the pub or walking over from a pub, one of the best places if you're going to go.
Yeah, well, he didn't know anything about it. But I kicked myself then because he invited me down that day because we'd often go drinking together. And my wife was at work, I had the kids, and I said, I won't come today, Dad.
Really? Close relationship? I mean, you talked fondly earlier of that.
Yeah.
Close relationship?
Yeah, amazingly close. I mean, not so much as a kid because he was always at work.
Right. What did he do?
He worked at Stansted Airport. He was in charge. He was like a maintenance manager in charge of one of the big hangars up there.
Right.
But he worked every day of the week and then Saturday morning, Sunday morning. So, you know, I never went to kids' football with him or anything like that. I was always with someone else's dad.
Right.
But then, obviously, when I got to the age where I could go in a pub,
You do have different relationships with parents. It's an interesting one. We all think that, mum and dad are going to do this for us, but they were working.
Yeah.
It is different, and it grows and it changes, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, and then we formed a bond, a better bond as I was older, and then right the way through until he passed.
Did you go to sport events together and stuff like that? Or
I took him to Tottenham a few times.
So where? Sorry, the mic's gone. I can't hear. Oh, right, okay.
Yeah. No, we went to a few things together. Yeah.
And what about mum?
Mum was COVID, March.
Was it?
March 2020.
Was she ill as well or not?
No, she'd had a heart operation. She'd had a valve replaced in the heart.
So going into COVID, she had that, or after?
No, she had that 6 months before COVID, right. 6 or 9 months before, and then she just fell ill, and she had a clot on the valve that they'd put in, and it was sort of pinging off fungal around her body. She went blind actually before she died. Yeah, and obviously COVID came. I saw her on Mother's Day. And then couldn't go again. And
so you were one of the people that got caught in that horrendous situation of having somebody here in hospital that you cannot see.
Yeah, phone call, it's awful.
I mean, we look back, don't we, but that must have been brutal.
Yeah, it was. I mean, a phone call first thing in the morning, literally said, your mum's not responsive this morning, we're putting her on life support, and then we'll call you when we've turned it off later.
Like that?
And that was it, yeah. I obviously asked, could I go in and see her? And they said, no, sorry, no one's allowed in. So that was it, yeah.
That's brutal. Good relationship with your mum, I gather you did?
Yeah. Well, my mum was 9 years without my dad. Right. So, at first, to watch her, she really struggled.
Did she?
Never really got over it. And I used to...
sort of broken heart from it, really.
Yeah, and she used to frustrate me at times, because I'd be thinking, come on, Mum, just get out and do something. Yeah,
you're trying your best, aren't you?
Yeah, move on, you've got to move on, but it's easy said when you're not in it.
I mean, I've seen situations in the past of that, people, someone passing in a relationship, and then not long after, you said there's 9 years difference there, but not long after, they've drifted as well.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
And are you close to your brother?
Yeah, relatively close. He lives not far from me.
And is he a Tottenham fan as well?
He is, yeah.
Right. You haven't got him in the construction industry, though?
No.
He's bright. You said he's bright.
Yeah, he's bright, yeah. Well, he's sort of he's an accountant for a facilities business. So. And
heart problems in the family. Are there any charities that are close to you?
I mean, I'd like to do more for charity, to be honest, and I want to get to a position where the business is doing well enough that we can start doing charity golf days and other bits. Because I've done charity events with. I've done the Three Peaks Challenge when I was at
That's
Western.
hard going, isn't it?
Yeah, that was hard going. I've done a couple of Manchester to Blackpool bike rides and that sort of thing. But I do think that it definitely needs support, and we want to get more into it.
Is it one charity that you're into? It's a Heart Foundation or something, or do you mix it around?
Yeah, I think the Heart Foundation is one because obviously of my experiences with my parents, but the other one is Children with Cancer. Our friend, their child from, I'm not sure, I think it was about 18 months or 2 when he got cancer. And we went up to visit him once in Great Ormond Street. That place is heartbreaking.
I know. If you can't, because you're not like that these days, but if you're having a bad day, go and have a wander around there. And when you're going in, and I'm fortunate, whatever you want to call it, I've been there a few times.
Yeah.
You see some of the kids, and the outcome's not great, but they're smiling.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, and playing, and
it's an unbelievable place, isn't it?
Yeah, it took my breath away when I was in there.
And the other thing is that we're talking about tough times. The British public in general, but the construction and the house building industry in good times and still today give big money to charities.
Yeah.
And again, they are actually really struggling.
Yeah.
I was at a golf day. Bob Weston runs a golf day, and I know you mentioned you worked for him in the past.
Yes, yeah.
That hospice golf day, the people in the room are all struggling.
Yeah.
But somehow, some way, they find a way of putting their hand in their pocket. But it will, if we keep going the way we're going, charities are going to struggle.
Yeah, no. I mean, it's Western Homes I did the Three Peaks Challenge with, actually.
Oh, was it really?
When I was there, yeah. Yeah, I mean, they do a massive amount of charity, don't they?
Oh, I mean, you know, I mentioned to you earlier, I had breakfast with him this morning, and he's been on the podcast. You know, what that business does. But, you know, all of the people we have come on, all of them have been, I use the term, I get told off for it all the time, lovely. But they are lovely. And nearly, I don't think we've had anyone on that doesn't do something for charity in some way, shape or form.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just amazing. Three Peaks, I wouldn't do, because I'm scared of heights.
Right, okay.
But it's as brutal coming down as it is going up, isn't it?
Yeah, it's harder coming down, I
Yeah,
find.
but your knees and all that.
Yeah, yeah. We lost a couple of people, didn't lose them.
You didn't lose it?
No. Injury. Lost them through injury.
Kicked a couple of people we didn't like. Oh, see you, mate.
Yeah, on the way down, because as you say, on the knees, it's a killer.
And bike rides? You like your bike
Yeah,
riding?
I like going out on my road bike. Done a couple of Manchester to Blackpool rides. Done a charity boxing fight.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
And was that a draw?
No, I won that.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
You took on a dwarf though, didn't you? Come on.
Well, actually, he was a lot younger than me. He was 21, and
Oh, was he?
I was 40. I don't know, 45 at the time, 44.
It's a great sport.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
I did it as a kid.
Yeah.
It's a great sport. It's another sport that we should get into schools.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, I still do it. I still go once a week, and
It is a great sport, discipline, great way of getting, especially if you're struggling at school.
yeah,
You know, I struggled at school, but boxing, that puts a bit of discipline into you.
yeah, it does.
And it gives you some self-worth.
Yeah, well, there's nowhere to hide, is there?
Well,
You go to a boxing club,
I used
it's
to run
you.
around that ring pretty quick then, I'll tell you,
Yeah.
because they were hitting me and I didn't like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Well, you got to put your own effort in, because it's only you that can.
Yeah.
You know.
So, going forward, charity events is on the agenda.
Yeah,
Golf days.
yeah.
What other things do you want to do with your business going forward?
Well, as I say, I think really we want to be looking at doing more developing, and not completely step away from the construction space, but be very choosy about who we work for.
Is that because you're worried because of the economic side of it now?
No, I just think that the way that there's people out there prepared to work for the sort of margins they're prepared to work for, and it's a risky business.
Yeah.
You know, there's so much risk involved in it. Even the weather's a risk.
Yeah.
I just don't see. I don't want to get caught by it, you know. And I think with developing, when we've done our own developments, it's a pleasure to do, because you're in control.
You're in control and you're running the agenda.
Yeah, yeah. And for me, and in fairness, that is my background.
Yeah.
Contracting never was. That's something we've sort of fallen into that space.
And have you got the ambition to build the company up to take more people on? Because one of the things when small and medium-sized companies out, employment law needs to be looked at.
Yeah.
That is backward. Nobody wants to talk about it.
No.
But it needs to be looked at, because lots of people, and I know, me included, that are running small businesses are now scared, is the right word, to employ people.
Yeah. Yeah, no. And that's understandable. I mean, you've almost got to be, it's probably because you're sitting between the size of being able to warrant having an HR person within your business,
Yep.
or dealing with it at a lower level.
And again, if we don't incentivise organisations to employ people, unemployment's going to go up.
Yeah.
There's going to be another drain. But employment law is scary, and most of the people I know, particularly now, are going, "Oh, I don't know if I want to do that."
Yeah.
And we come from a culture where we know there was bullying.
Yeah, yeah.
We come from a culture, we tapped on it, you brought it up in the very beginning.
Yeah.
But is that sort of those scales of justice, that
Yes.
seesaw gone too much the other way?
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think it has.
How do we deal with that going forward?
That's a tough one, isn't it?
But these are the things that we've got to get out there, haven't we?
Yeah.
And also, we're scared, aren't we? I talk to people in open forums, and I can see in their eyes, and I can see the way they thought, I'm going to be careful how I answer that,
Yeah.
because I don't want to get in trouble.
Yeah.
You can't live a life like that. That's not an educational process, is it?
No, I mean it's an embedded culture now, isn't it?
It is a culture,
you know, and it's going to be very difficult to change that now.
And you can see situations, and I'm talking from experience. You can see situations where people get hurt by it that actually haven't done anything wrong.
Yeah. Because
somebody can, I use the terminology, cry wolf.
Yeah.
And I'm not. Again, people don't want to talk about it.
No.
It's like, oh well, we won't go there. But if we don't go there, we're not going to deal with it. Tough questions.
Yeah.
And so when you've got a company you want to grow, you want to do more private development, you're going to need to employ more people.
Yeah.
But in the back of your mind, it's got to be careful here.
Yeah, no, we will have to be careful like anyone else, but I think it's a case of educating yourself really in terms of how that's all got to knit together and just educating the people in the business as well, and how they have to behave.
It definitely has changed. It definitely has changed. But you're right, it's an education process. When we sat down, I said to you that time goes quick.
Yeah.
I'm going to touch on one more thing because we're recording this a few weeks before this is going to come out, but obviously your mob are playing my mob at the weekend. What do you think is going to happen? It's at your house. For those of you that don't know what I'm talking about, it's Tottenham play Arsenal this weekend. What do you think is going to happen?
Well, we're going to win, aren't we?
I think you will. I didn't think you would until recent events. We've got some players out. I know you've got a striker that might not be playing.
Yeah.
You're really confident? A few goals? What do you reckon score-wise?
Oh, I don't think it'd be 2-1.
2-1 to you?
2-1.
Happy with your manager?
Yeah, at the moment.
A lot of Tottenham fans the last couple of games been moaning. I don't get it myself, but
problem is we've had good managers moaned about them, got rid of them, and then
get another one.
Yeah, they're actually probably all right.
Yeah.
You know, so it's you're always going to get people moaning, aren't you?
I think it's a way of life now. Does seem to me Tottenham moan more than most, though.
Yeah.
I think you will win. Breaks my heart to say that. Hope it's a good game. Thank you for your time.
No, thank you.
Thank you for being, I know we don't know each other. Thank you for being open. I wish you and Linfield all the best going forward.
Thanks, yeah.
Maybe we can do some work together, you never know.
Yeah.
Take care. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Steve.
Viewers, listeners, another episode comes. I mean, I'm sure we could chat about construction all day long, but time goes quickly. I hope you've enjoyed this frank conversation. It's been lovely to meet Steve, who's married to Emma, and I'm Steve, and I'm married to Emma. But we've not got anything else in common because he's Tottenham and I'm Arsenal. But I hope you've enjoyed the podcast. Look forward to seeing you soon. Take care. Come on the Arsenal. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Cheers, mate.